Who are already in here, thank you for being on time. For those out in the hallway who can hear me, let's filter in. We'll be starting in 2 minutes. Tua. As you were.
Talk amongst yourselves. Yes. It takes a while to get up and down these things.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, the coffee's kicking in. Like to hear that. My name is John Hudson. I'm HR manager for Discovery Communications in Harpo Studios here in Chicago. So I'd like to welcome you all here to lovely Chicago/Oak Brook, Illinois. If it's your first time, one of the things I'd like to give a little fun fact about Oak Brook. One of my favorite movies, Brian's Song, featuring Brian Piccolo, you all familiar with that? Was filmed either here, close to here, somewhere around here. But that's one of the things, if you do Wikipedia that, I'm not responsible for if that's true or not, but just wanted to mention as we are here in Chicago. One thing I want to mention, our conference chair, Sabrina Baker. Everybody give Sabrina a round of applause. Unfortunately, with all this planning and all of the tireless work that Sabrina's been doing, she lost her voice last night. So that's why you have me up here speaking right now. So I apologize, but Sabrina has been planning, she and her team have been planning tirelessly this past year on putting together this conference. And one of the things she wanted me to mention, she's so excited, we're all so excited to have all of you here at our conference, at our state conference here in Illinois. One of the things in putting this together, if you all know, if you did attend, we did have the SHRM annual conference just in June here in Chicago. So we weren't really sure what was going to happen. We weren't sure on registration and how that was going to work out. And we set a goal. We set a goal to have 500 people registered for this conference. And like the overachievers we are, and thanks to every one of you that are here, we exceeded that goal, had 587 registrants as of 8 o'clock. There may be some filtering in. The word is out. We're still tweeting, and you can still register, so if you have friends down the street, have them come on down. One of the things, there's so much more that, not much more, but there is more that I want to talk about. But first, I want to introduce our Illinois SHRM Board President, Kathy Plojek, is going to come up and talk to us a little bit about the board and all the great things we're doing. So, Kathy?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am so glad you're here. Like John said, we set a goal of 500, and
587 is awesome. So thank you. This is our 14th annual conference, ILSHRM13, hashtag ILSHRM13, so welcome. And I wanted to just take a few minutes to, I guess, give a brief history lesson or geographic or of what SHRM. I get questions on the website when you email info@ilshrm.org. I'm the one that gets those emails, and a lot of people say, you know, how much does it cost to join Illinois SHRM, and what are the dues? We are an affiliate of SHRM, so you have SHRM in the DC area in Virginia, and then our nation, or the United States, is broken into regions. We are the North Central region, and we rock. We always say that, North Central rocks. And then each state has a state council, and then each state also has several chapters, and we have 21 chapters in Illinois. So we do have a membership booth, and I encourage you, if you're not in a chapter, and I think our latest registration report said there's around 250 here that are not, or you forgot to put that you are in a chapter registered, so please stop by our membership booth, and anyone that has an Ask Me button on, stop in and ask them about SHRM membership. I've been a member of the Peoria, Heart of Illinois chapter for a number of years. It was Peoria. Yay, I could hear Peoria. So in the rewards I've gotten are just tremendous in networking. I know most of the HR pros in my area. Anytime I have a question or want to network or anything, I can just call a number of people. So again, I encourage you that. So what I want to do right now is just take a few minutes and thank our board. We do have Illinois SHRM Core Board at the State Council, and then that board also consists of chapter presidents. So I'm going to go ahead and just hold your applause. I know, because these people are awesome. You want to just stand up and give them a standing O. But hold your applause to the end, and as I call out the group, if you'll just stand or raise your hand if you're in the room. I'd like the executive board to stand, please. Executive board for Illinois SHRM. Do we have any executive board? Yeah, there's Donna Rogers, past director, immediate past director. John Jorgensen in the back. Joe Rinke, treasurer. Great. How about district directors? Our states are broken into 6 districts. We have our district directors in the room. And then our core leadership area. Core leadership, workforce readiness, technology. It's all. Membership. Diversity, great, great. All right, and again, each chapter, we have got 21 chapters, is represented to chapter presidents, also sit on the Illinois SHRM board. Will they please stand? Awesome. And now everyone can continue standing, chapter presidents, or keep standing. All of you who are in a chapter, please stand. All of you who are in a chapter, registered in a chapter, please stand. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, this is a great opportunity to network and build your Illinois SHRM network. So again, have a great time. If you have any questions, anything we can do to make your conference better, please see someone in the white shirt and it has an Ask Me button. Thank you. And now I want to introduce Martha Ramirez from SHRM, and she's here to give us a update on what's going on in SHRM.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to be very brief. First of all, I want to say welcome to Illinois SHRM on behalf of SHRM National, or SHRM Global, I should say. Illinois SHRM is so important to us, and we have a great relationship with the state, and so thank you for being here. How many of you were at the annual conference that SHRM held in June? Awesome. How many of you volunteered at that conference? Wonderful, wonderful. We love volunteers, and so what we decided to do at our booth this year is to do a prize drawing for a Visa gift card for anybody who's a volunteer at the chapter level or who volunteered at annual conference, so come and win some money. Also, how many of you are certified? PHR, SPHR? Please stand and be applauded by your peers. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for maintaining that certification. If you want a ribbon, we have them at our booth as well. So I really just want to say stop by the booth, meet Nancy Conway, who's here. Nancy, raise your hand. And I are here the whole 2 days, so come by and talk to us. We have information that we can share with you at the booth. And students, do we have any students in the room? Okay, if you know of any students, tell them to come on over and meet us because we have a gift for them as well. The future of HR, right? So that's really all I have to say. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting SHRM either at the national level, at the chapter level. Like Kathy said, it really is important for you to maybe engage locally if you have a chapter near you. If you don't have a chapter near you, we can certainly fix that, and come see me. Thank you. John?
Thank you, Martha. Okay, a few housekeeping items. We always got to talk about that. Primarily, since we've had lots of coffee, lots of water, everything, I need to point out the bathrooms, most importantly. So bathrooms will be located if you go close to the exhibit hall. SHRM Foundation booth or along that back wall. That's most important. Other thing, Wi-Fi. I see a lot of mobile devices here. I see some laptops. I see some iPads and every other type of tablet. If you have not yet found the Wi-Fi access, we're going to make things pretty easy here. You're going to notice a little bit of a theme that we have. But if you log in, the network you're looking for is ILSHRM13. Password is ILSHRM13. Since we're talking Wi-Fi, and we'll talk it again, if you are on Twitter, hashtag for the conference, ILSHRM13. Please be sure when you're tweeting about this, you use that. As Kathy has mentioned, you're going to have people all around in white shirts. Green, is it? Yeah. Green Ask Me buttons. They want you to ask you something. And Kathy talked a little bit about that. If you have questions about chapter membership, we just went through who was all part of that membership. Please go up and talk to them, ask them. They love to talk. They love to tell about their local chapters. I'm a member of our local Chicago SHRM chapter. Anybody here from Chicago SHRM? Yay! All right. I'm a new member, so I joined last year as part of this drive. If you do have questions as well, please stop by the membership booth. That's 003 for your membership booth. We have some fancy new brochures. So if anything else, just stop by and check out these brochures. But also talk a little bit to there. You'll get information on your local chapters. Any non-members, non-chapter members that are here, if you go to the booth 003, and all you have to do is fill out an interest card. There's zero obligation, no fees, nothing that you have to do. But you fill out an interest card, you're going to be entered and registered, or entered into a drawing for a free registration for next year's 2014 Illinois SHRM Conference. So stop by that booth. Speaking of booths, we do have 43 vendors that are taking the time to come here, share their products, talk about their products. So please stop by the exhibit hall, walk through there. I'm sure there's some great giveaways, but also some great information. Learn everything that's going on within our HR industry and everything that you can learn there. Outside there, I mentioned we also have, by the bathrooms, the SHRM Foundation booth, 25 beautiful gift baskets that we will be raffling off throughout the conference. So please stop by, check those out, and learn a little bit more about the SHRM Foundation. Right by the SHRM Foundation is also the bookstore. Great, there's a lot of great information, a lot of great books from current keynote speakers and former speakers here at Illinois SHRM. So stop by the bookstore, check out all the information we have. Also, I know you guys love selfies. You love taking pictures of yourself. You love photo booths. We do have a photo booth here at Illinois SHRM. So if you stop by booth 309, stop by, get a picture of your photo booth, and have fun with that. All right, I'm moving here. One thing, I'd like to get a round of applause right now because we have brought the social media lab back. Can I get a round of applause for the social media lab? See them all around here. All right, take that, HR Florida. Sorry. Hey, they didn't get a round of applause. We got a round of applause here. So the social media lab is back. That's located right next to registration. So you will see a few folks there, social media experts on their iPads, their mobile devices, tweeting, talking, and doing everything about social media. If you're still new to Twitter, if you're still new to social media, any of the tools, stop by the social media lab. They love to talk about it. They love to tweet about it. Hashtag ILSHRM13. They will tell you all about that. One of the great things, too, about this conference, I want to shout out to Susan Avello for putting together this year's mobile app. There is a mobile app for the conference. So if you do have a smart device, you can swing by your app store and go to Bizzabo, Bizzabo. This app is sponsored by the Symbolist, so we thank the Symbolist for sponsoring this app. Download that app. You have the agenda. You have all the speakers. Everything that you have can be found on that app, so please definitely check that out. Also, we have a lot of the presentations for our concurrent sessions will be up on a website and a tool called SlideCloud. That's Cloud, Klowd. So if you are on your laptop, on your smart devices, and you go into a concurrent session, go to www.slidecloud.com. Right next to the sign-in, you're going to click Join a Presentation. While you're in that presentation, the speaker, if they do have their presentation on SlideCloud, will give you a key that you're able to download and follow along there. So definitely check that out. And one of the things, as I had mentioned, being able to register, we're a strategic organization, we're forward-thinking, we are always looking to the future. So that being said, I'm proud to announce for 2014, we will be right back here in Drury Lane for ILSHRM13. That's going to hashtag that. So if you guys want to talk about the future, ILSHRM14, I just started that, so sorry, Social Media Lab, that's what it is. You can register now. It is going to be August 4th and 5th. Registration is now open at ilshurm.org. The great thing is, if you act now, before September 20th, you're able to lock in this year's conference rates for next year. Get that on your calendar, plan it, you love it, you love Oak Brook, you want to come back. So you can do that. It's open right after this conference or right after this session. You were able to go there. If you don't register by the 20th, you know we're going to jack the rates. So get the deep discount right now. Okay, so we're all here to learn. We're all here to interact with our peers, to engage, and also to soak in some fantastic content. And I am very happy to announce this morning's keynote speaker. I've had a chance to get to know Dr. Daniel Crosby. He will be speaking with us this morning. Dr. Crosby is a psychologist and a behavioral financial expert, highly educated from BYU and Emory. He is featured in great publications as Huffington Post, Psychology Today. He's also a renowned author of the book, You're Not That Great. Yeah, he reminds me of that a lot. Speaking of that book, and I mentioned the SHRM bookstore, it is for sale in the SHRM bookstore. Immediately after this presentation, Dr. Crosby will be signing copies of that book right across the way from the bookstore. If you already have it, he did tell me he will sign my Kindle or sign your iPad. So if you already have that down, he's able to do that. On Dr. Crosby's spare time, I'm sorry, guys, he loves the Cardinals. So maybe some downstate. Yeah, I got it. He loves spending time with his wife, his daughter, and soon-to-be son. So you can talk to him all about that. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Daniel Crosby.
Thank you so much. A lot of Cards fans. I'm in good company. I always feel like I'm dropped behind enemy lines when I get here in Chicago. But it's great to be here, though, in all seriousness. I saw a couple of nervous looks when John announced that they had chosen a shrink to speak to you first thing this morning. Saw a couple people sort of scratching their heads and wondering what Illinois SHRM thought about you to bring such a person in to speak to you today. But I got to tell you that it gets worse before it gets better, because not only am I a shrink and not only am I a Cardinals fan, I'm also from Alabama. So this is this is not shaping up for you. When you think about Alabama, if you're like most people who I meet, you probably, watch it, Susan, you probably have a couple of reactions, right? Maybe you know that Alabama is the second fattest state in the country. Or maybe you know that Alabama is the second worst educated. Thank God for Mississippi, as we say in Alabama. But there's one thing that we do extremely well in the Deep South, and that's hospitality. The rumors are true. It's a very hospitable place. And I want to bring a little bit of Southern hospitality to Illinois SHRM13 today. Okay? I was here last year, and I was put through the dancing with everyone else. There will be no dancing today. But I would like you all to stand up now, please. One of the reasons that I love being from Alabama is that in Alabama, it is no big deal to talk to a stranger. And you know that with almost 100% certainty, when you are in the grocery line, you are going to get chatted up by someone totally random, and you're going to have a very pleasant conversation with them. I want to bring a little of that here today. I want you to look around you, find someone you have never met, introduce yourself, and tell this stranger something you're excited to learn at Illinois SHRM13. Go. All right, okay, stop. That's enough hospitality. No more. No more hospitality. No more hospitality. All right. I didn't realize how fully you were going to embrace that. Now don't stand up, because heaven knows I can't get 600 people to come back to attention again. But I want you to turn to that person if they're within arm's reach. And instead of dancing, we're going to have you say the following thing. So repeat after me. Turn to your stranger friend now. And I want you to say to them, "Hello, new friend. Hello, new friend. You're not that great." Okay? No. Calm down. Okay. By the end of this presentation, I want you to realize that these few words right here are some of the most compassionate words you could ever say to someone. I enjoyed speaking with your SHRM representative earlier, and she said, "I love the title of your presentation. I assume there's a positive message behind it." And indeed there is. We're going to talk about this. As if I don't get enough weird looks for being a psychologist from Alabama, I've now written a book called You're Not That Great. So I feel a little bit inclined to tell you how I've arrived at this place. The seeds for writing this book were sown very early on, and I want to begin this presentation by introducing you to someone special in my life. This is my grandfather. My full name is Charles Daniel Crosby. And this is my grandfather, who was also named Charles. There's some resemblance if I lost 35 pounds, probably. But my grandfather was a great man. He was born to subsistence peanut farmers in South Alabama and was the first in his family to go to college at Auburn University. He then went to Korea, won enough money gambling in Korea to come home and buy a car and a home and marry my grandmother. He then moved to Huntsville, Alabama, which is where I'm from, where I grew up, and he started a business there, which proved to be very successful. But not everything was all roses in my grandpa's life, because he found out at age 42 that he had terminal cancer, and that he only had a year to live. He was a huge fan of Russian literature, and he spent 6 months of his remaining year of life studying Russian literature in Moscow, away from his family. and then came back to Alabama for the last 6 months of his life before he ultimately passed at the age of 43. From there, the plot thickens because he actually died on October 16th, and I was born on October 16th. So the parallels between us have been very profound, and I've always felt a very deep connection to him, even though we've never had the opportunity to meet. So being raised sort of in the shadow of this great man and sharing so much in common, this love of Russian literature and a love of entrepreneurship and reading, I've always felt a kinship for him, and seeing as that is the case, I realized that we don't all get the 80 years that I sometimes think we get, right? We live our lives sometimes without a great deal of urgency. We live our lives in a way that we feel like it's going to keep on going forever. But stories like my grandfather's, and I'm sure we all have stories like this, remind us that nothing's guaranteed. So his story and my affinity for him has led me to this sort of obsession for coming up with rules for living a good life. How can I live a positive life? And if tomorrow never does come, how can I ensure that I've had a good existence? The second thing is my job. My day job is as an organizational psychologist, and so I spend a lot of my time in many of the same pursuits that you probably do. Hiring great folks, assessing talent, coaching, leadership development, these sorts of things. And early on in my career, I worked for an assessment shop in Atlanta that worked almost exclusively with banks and hedge funds to vet the talent at banks and hedge funds pre-hire. These are folks that are making, $700,000 to $2 or $3 million a year. They want to get the hire right. And so I was put in charge of assessing their IQ, their organizational fit, these sorts of things. And one thing that I was so surprised at was, one, you should be very, very afraid about who's managing your money. That was one thing I learned. There are a bunch of dummies in the banking industry. The second thing I learned was that people hated to be average, that people almost assumed greatness in all areas of their life. And having to come back to someone and say, yeah, you need to work on this, or you're about middle of the pack on this, people took as just such a damning insult. And I had never thought of it that way, that being average would be so painful for some people. We are a country in love with leadership. Leadership is the most studied psychological trait of all. Greatness, leadership, is studied volumes more than any other psychological trait, happiness, sadness, whatever, arguably things that occur on a much more regular basis. But we study leadership, we study greatness, because we all want to be great and we all think we are great. We etch our leaders' faces in the sides of mountains if they're good leaders, right? I mean, we're really, really in love with this. But what I think has happened of late is something that I call in the book great inflation. If you've been in academic settings recently, you're familiar with grade inflation, which is this idea that grades are sort of artificially pumped up or everyone expects an A. I think the same thing has happened with greatness, that we expect to be great, and we often expect it without much work or effort on our part. So one of the things of which I think wrongly get accused is elitism. When I talk about this, people say, oh, you're not that great. That's an elitist mentality. Yeah, we're all great. Well, I think we all can be great, but I don't think that greatness is guaranteed, and I think if you guarantee greatness, you cheapen it. So let me tell you a story, liken this unto a story that I experienced recently with my daughter here, right? So this is my little girl. She's 2 in this picture. She just turned 4. But this is my little girl, Charlotte. And when Charlotte was 2, I took her to a place that has the greatest business model of all time, and that place is Build-A-Bear. It's, I believe, a St. Louis-based company. So Build-A-Bear is awesome for them because they charge you twice as much and make you do all the work, okay? You're going to leave Build-A-Bear feeling a little bit dirty and used after you get out of there and a lot broker than you were. So I took her to make this panda, right? You get the little skin, and then you stuff it and tie it up, and you can put stuff inside of it. In her case, she wanted to record her voice in this little heart. You can actually record her voice, put it in this little heart, stuff it inside the bear, and then when you depress the bear's paw or the chest or whatever, it says whatever she said on the recording. So she says, "I love you," into this little heart. So now Charlotte's little panda will, right on time, say, "I love you," every single time. Perfect, flawless execution of a kind gesture, right? So do you think that I, when I'm having a bad day, go pull out that bear and look for affirmation from that bear? Do you think I ever do that? I'm from Alabama, but I'm not crazy, okay? I never do that. And the reason that I never do that is because it's not great. It's perfect, it's flawless, but it's not meaningful, okay? And the reason that it's not meaningful is because it can't do anything else. It's great by default. It's not a choice. It's not a meaningful action between opposites. Now, what if Charlotte tells me that she loves me? Does that warm my heart? Absolutely. But is she perfect in her execution of that? Absolutely not, because she also tells me that I smell funny and that I have a pimple or whatever, right? But because she can do these different things, it's more meaningful. So if everything you do is great, then nothing is great. And if every one is great and every action is great, then nothing is great. Great inflation cheapens it. So I want to talk about 7 hard truths today that are going to be more of a punch in the face than a pat on the back, but I think they are ultimately positive. And the first of these is that you are not special. You are not special. You are not a snowflake, right? And the reason that I do not want you to think of yourselves as special is because special people are cheaters. This has been proven time and again, most famously by a woman named Carol Dweck, Dr. Carol Dweck, who studies in the public schools in New York City. She's done fantastic research there. What she found in a famous study is that she separated students into 2 groups and asked them to transcribe their report cards and send them to a stranger. So to just transcribe verbatim what appeared on the report card and send it to one of their little fictional pen pals, okay? 2 groups were this. One group was complimented for being hardworking. For one group, she said, "You worked so hard, you did your best, you gave it your all. Good luck transcribing your report card. I know you're gonna do a great job." The second group she complimented for being gifted, innately gifted, blessed from above with special powers, right? She said to the second group, "You are so smart, you're so talented, you're so bright. Transcribe that report card, thank you," right? What happened? The group that was complimented for being hardworking did not cheat, right? Because they felt built up in a meaningful way. The group that had been coronated, though, as the special group, 40% of them, almost half of these little kids, lied on their report cards because they felt the need to keep up this illusion of being special. They felt that the mantle of specialness was heavy enough that they felt driven to cheat. And we saw this in the Bernie Madoff case, too. Bernie Madoff had made tens and tens of millions of dollars personally, but he said he never felt special. He never felt included. He always felt like the little Jewish kid from Brooklyn, were his words. Even though he had been a pioneer, a legitimate pioneer in the financial services industry before he started his Ponzi scheme. But he never felt special, and that was a big deal to him. This gentleman right here is someone with whom probably almost none of you are familiar because of the sad ending to his story. This guy's name is William Shockley. And his first notable run-in with specialness came as a young child. He was tested for possible inclusion in what's now the longest-running study on academic excellence ever by a gentleman named Dr. Terman at Stanford University. Dr. Terman grouped together what he called Terman's termites, which were these super gifted little kids with an average IQ of 152. So the population average is 100, a standard deviation is 15. So at 152, this is like the 1% of the 1% of smart kids now, okay? William Shockley was tested to be part of this program, and he didn't make the cut. His IQ wasn't good enough, and that really, really hurt his feelings. He says later that he didn't feel special, he didn't feel included. So Shockley goes on to get a PhD from Harvard University, goes on to win a Nobel Prize, goes on to be named to Time's 100 most influential thinkers of the 20th century. So why have we never heard of him? Why is he not a hero? The reason is because having been hit with the stick of I'm not good enough or I'm not special enough, he proceeded to expend his intellectual capital to hit other people with that stick. Shockley is most remembered for being in favor of something called eugenics, which was he desired to sterilize people, make it so that they couldn't have children if they had a low IQ, right? So this is how he used his power to try and promote this horrible, horrible idea. But we see that once he had been told that he wasn't special, he spent all his time telling other people that they weren't special. The fact is, psychologists have found time and time again that this gold star mentality, that this self-esteem for self-esteem's sake is bogus, right? Of the 15,000 studies that were undertaken as part of a meta-analysis, only 0.013 of them even met the sort of minimum scientific rigor standards. And self-esteem is not predictive of almost anything, including workplace performance, academic achievement, or whether or not someone will become substance abuse addicted, right? Self-esteem, there's just not much there, right? And the researcher who helmed this called it the biggest disappointment of his career. So what are we to do with this? How can we make people feel special or make them feel wanted and included without having them be entitled? The most robust finding of all of these 15,000 studies is that people have a very high internal BS detector, right? They can tell when they're being snowed. They can tell when you're giving them a gold star because it's part of your program, or you're rewarding them to bring it into the HR realm, when you're rewarding them sort of for nothing, or giving them cheap pats on the back. What people want is meaningful, tough work, and then to be recognized. Self-esteem for its own sake is worthless, but giving people difficult, engaging work, supporting them along the way, and then recognizing them for that, that's meaningful. That's how you make people feel special, not throwing gold stars at them. The second thing that we're going to talk about is that you're kind of crazy. Okay, you're kind of crazy. I want you to look to your right. Everyone look to your right. Look to the person to your right. Okay? Now look to the person to your left. One of them is nuts. And I want you to figure out which it is. Now keep it on the DL. I mean, be tactful. Be tactful, but spend the rest of the time trying to figure out which one's the nut job, right? So statistics tell us that over the course of our lifetime, 46% of us are going to be diagnosed with a mental illness, right? So like diagnosed by a doctor with some form of mental illness, about half of us in this room. Okay? And at any given time, about 15 to 20% of Americans are taking medication for depression or other mental illnesses. Right? So this is what it is. All of us, almost all of us, if we're not personally impacted by mental illness of some sort, then we at least know and love someone who is. So look at this hypocrisy. I know we didn't get into HR and psychology because we love math, but look at this. So half of us are crazy, but 70% of us don't want a crazy person marrying into our family. That doesn't work. And depictions of people with depression and other mental illnesses on TV are almost uniformly negative and bad caricatures of what it means to have a mental illness. 73% of those who are mentally ill are depicted on TV as killer clowns or psychos or this sort of thing. We really make this cartoonish because we don't want to deal with it and think about how it impacts us directly. But there's actually a lot to be said for being kind of crazy. You know, Joe and Jason encouraged us last year to fly our freak flags. And I want to encourage you to fly your crazy flag this year, to fly it a little bit higher at work than you have. Because there's a lot to having gone through some things in your life and having had some tough times. The first thing is that it makes you more empathic, right? I'll share a personal story right now. You've met my beautiful daughter. You've heard that I have a son on the way. But in between them, we lost 3 children. We lost 3 children in between my 4-year-old and the little boy that's coming in November, right? I will tell you, before this happened to me, I had lots and lots of friends who had miscarriages. I had lots and lots of friends who dealt with this, and I was not a good friend to them. You know, I said the right things, right? I said the right things. I said, you know, we're thinking of you, and I felt bad. But I wasn't a deeply caring, involved, compassionate, empathic friend in a way that would have really helped them, right? There's something about personal experience that deepens us and puts us in a position where we can help and heal other people with whom we come in contact, right? Crazy people, and I'm using this lovingly, right? I'm using the term crazy lovingly. Crazy people are more creative. When you never sleep, you get a lot of stuff done, right? Crazy people are better under pressure, because when your whole life is sort of a mental race against the clock, when the deadline comes, it's no sweat, right? And actually, it's been shown time and time again that people who have sort of a glass half empty mentality are actually more realistic. So seek out all the Eeyores in your organization and put them in charge of solving the really tough problems, because they see the world as it really is a lot of times. Crazy is what drove some of our best leaders. Both Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi attempted suicide as youth. Both men had demons, right? Both men had demons that they wrestled with through their whole lives. But these demons deepened them and made them the kind of people with the kind of character that could lead people who were also in the midst of a struggle. Same with Abraham Lincoln, a deeply troubled individual, massively depressed, who saw our country through one of the most depressing times in its history, right? Personal struggles, hardships can deepen us and make us better if we allow them to. So I want you to think about, or write down right now, the toughest thing that has ever happened to you. What is the hardest thing that has ever happened to you? Maybe it was so hard that you don't even like to think about it or talk about it. But I want to suggest to you that you bring that to the surface and you let it change you and the people with whom you come in contact for the better, right? Just as I talked about earlier. So what are 5 positive things? I want you to think of 5 positive things that make you a deeper, more caring, more empathic person as a result of this hardest thing. And then the second piece of that is, how can I apply that outside of myself? Who can I help with this information? Because if you allow crazy to shape you and mold you and make you a more caring person, it stops being crazy and it starts being wonderful, right? The third hard truth is that a lot of what you believe is wrong. And so to illustrate a lot of what you believe is wrong, and I'm not getting political here, I'm going to use Dick Cheney. And I'm going to use Dick Cheney only because he shot his friend in the face. So he's easy to pick on. So Dick Cheney, in his rider, so a rider is the thing that speakers and folks send ahead that says, you know, the room must be 72 degrees and I want only blue M&Ms and whatever, right? Dick Cheney's rider said that when he goes into a hotel room, it must be playing one channel and one channel only. Anyone got to guess what channel he wants on? Fox News, right? So he wants Fox News on because Fox News aligns most closely with his personal worldview, okay? So we are all, I'm going to cut you real deep here, we're all a little bit like Dick Cheney in our own little ways, right? We got a little bit of Dick Cheney in us because we all engage in this confirmation bias. Psychologists tell us that we've got typically about 70 big decisions that we make every day, That's a lot of decisions. That's a couple an hour, right? So 70 decisions that we make every day, so we're always looking for ways to streamline that process, make it easier, and just sort of take shortcuts, mental shortcuts. One of the ways that we do this is through what's called confirmation bias and status quo bias. Confirmation bias means we make a decision, then we surround ourselves with people who think and act the same way so we don't constantly have to question what we're doing, right? The second is status quo bias, which is we're lazy, we're cognitively lazy, we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel forever, so we want to stay along that same path, right? These two things make life easier, but I would submit to you that they certainly do not make life better, and they don't contribute to you being a smart person or the things that you believe being true. I want to show how deeply ingrained this is in us with something that's called the free choice paradigm. The free choice paradigm is something that was dreamt up by sneaky shrinks like myself, where you take impressionist pieces of artwork and you put 6 of them out in a row. And I call an unsuspecting participant in, and I say, Jane, you've got 6 pieces of art here. I want you to rank them from most preferred to least preferred, and then you'll get to take one home. Okay? So Jane ranks the impressionist artwork 1 to 6, and then I say, okay, thank you. I'm going to run back to the warehouse and grab you your favorite, right? I'm going to get you your number 1 choice. So I come back, and being the sneaky shrink that I am, I'm wringing my hands, and I go, Jane, I'm so sorry. All we have left is number 3 and number 4. So sort of your middling preferences, not anything you loved or that you hated, right? So I come back with number 3 and number 4, and I say, which would you like? And Jane says 3. Jane goes home and comes back 2 weeks later, and I ask her to rank the same 6 paintings again. And I want you to look what has happened. The painting that she chose, which previously was her number 3 painting, now is typically number 1 or number 2. The number 4 painting, the painting she did not choose, is now typically number 6 or number 5. Okay? She didn't care a lick about these paintings before, and now they've gravitated toward the ends of sort of loving and hating. What happened? She spent the intervening 2 weeks patting herself on the back for making an awesome decision and simultaneously telling herself how much the decision that she didn't choose sucked, right? That's what she did. She said, you are brilliant, this is beautiful, I love these haystacks, they look great over my couch, and the picture of those flowers was ugly anyway, I didn't want it, okay? Talk to someone who's recently divorced or recently broken up with, you will see a very similar pattern, right? A very, very similar pattern, okay? We spend our whole lives doing this. We make choices, we surround ourselves with people who like those choices, and then we beat up the choices that we didn't make, okay? This is fine for breakfast cereal, but it's less fine for important things about how we view the world. Because hate feeds on lack of exposure. It's very easy to hate an idea. It's very, very easy to hate an idea. But it's hard to hate someone with whom we have lunch every day. But inasmuch as we insulate ourselves from people, we don't have lunch with people who think and act differently than we do, we put ourselves in this vacuum and we're not able to progress, right? One of my favorite shows is a show called 30 Days with Morgan Spurlock of the McDonald's fame, Super Size Me, right? And he gets people with opposing viewpoints on very contentious issues like abortion and immigration and religion and things like this, and has them live together in the same house for 30 days and live each other's lives. And almost inevitably, their views are softened and improved by having spent time with someone who thought differently than they did. So in order for your ideas about the world to be a little bit more truthful, I think there's a couple of quick steps you can take. The first is to be a truth scientist. We tend to go through the world looking for reasons why something is the case, right? Why is what I believe true? We look for evidences of that. Whereas a scientist looks for confirming and disconfirming information, right? So as you go about your professional life, as you go about your personal life, as you go about trying to just craft how you deal with the world. Look for reasons why you might be right, but also, just as equally, look for reasons why you might be wrong. Second, I want you to be a bridge. Each one of us is this weird mashup of cultural mutthood, right? Each of us is a cultural mutt, by virtue of our religion and the state where we grew up and our sexual preferences, and all of these things make us who we are. And we live in all of these different worlds simultaneously. And because of this, we can bridge gaps between people who don't necessarily get along. We have insider status in one world and maybe outsider status in another, but we can bring people together and make the world more compassionate, more harmonious, and make people realize that maybe they didn't disagree just as much as they thought, that maybe we have more in common as a human family than we might have thought. We're going to have you turn to your friends again, hopefully not the crazy one. By round of applause, because heaven knows I can't see your faces, by round of applause, who is here with someone they work with or someone they know personally? All right. That is lovely. Okay. So I want you to, just for a second, because it's hard to bring you back to order, give that person a hug, give them a high five, tell them thank you for coming to Illinois SHRM with me. You're a great friend. I told you Alabama brings the love. I told you. Okay, so you just high-fived this person, you just hugged their neck, whatever, right? Thank you for coming to Illinois SHRM with me. Now I want you to realize that the person that you're looking at is way, way more likely to kill you. Way more likely to kill you than a stranger or a terrorist. Way more likely. The most likely person to kill you is your spouse or your coworker. So sleep on that, right? Okay. So your appendix, darn thing, is actually a lot more likely to kill you than Al-Qaeda. So I was lucky enough to be introduced by John, who works for Discovery, right? And so Discovery, much as I love that channel, has had a really damaging effect on my psyche because of Shark Week. And it was just, I know this is top of mind because it just happened, but I was lucky enough, right after I got married, I landed a job teaching at a small university on the North Shore of Hawaii, right? So how cool is that? Just finished my PhD, just got married, and now I get a gig in Hawaii for 6 months, just sort of an adjunct position for 6 months. So our housing was provided for us. We get to Hawaii. We get in our crappy, horrible asbestos hut that cost like $2 million, right? And we drop our stuff, and we're so tired. It's been the longest trip. And they had this little 12-inch TV with 4 channels that was sort of provided for us. And Discovery was one of them, and Telemundo was one, and they don't speak Spanish. So it was really going to be Discovery Channel. So we flip on Discovery Channel that first day we had arrived in Hawaii, that first night, and it is Shark Week, okay? And I watch a program called The 10 Most Dangerous Spots to Get Attacked by a Shark, or whatever it was, and not 1, not 2, but 3 of them are Hawaii, okay? So I spend the next 6 months in the most beautiful place on earth and never once dip my toe in the water. I know, I beat myself up for it still because of John and his compatriots at Shark Week, right? So what I did is actually very typical of humanity, right? What I did is actually very typical of humanity, even though that none of us gets out of this thing called life alive, right? On a long enough timeline, we're all toast, but yet we still worry and let it get in the way of our living the life that we want to live. So this is the way that we tend to approach risk. We take low probability events like a shark attack and freak out about them. and let them really impact our lives, right? The odds of getting attacked by a shark are somewhere in the ballpark of 1 in 300 million, right? So 1 in 300 million, you have a better chance of becoming a Catholic saint than being attacked by a shark. You have a better chance of burning to death in your pajamas than getting attacked by a shark, falling in the shower, cutting yourself shaving. All of these things are way more probable than a shark attack. But yet I let that influence my behavior negatively. I let it mess my life up, frankly, for 6 months. And then conversely, there are little threats all around us that are kind of a big deal, that actually negatively impact our health, our wellness, the way that we live our life, and we don't tend to give them enough credence. So I'm going to tell you about something truly dangerous I did when I was in Hawaii, and I did it probably once every other week, and that was eating at Taco Bell, right? I was pretty poor, and I ate at Taco Bell a lot. I'm not afraid to admit it. But seriously, heart disease is much likelier to get me than a shark, but I didn't worry about them in correct proportion, right? So I think that there's probably something in your life today that is a low probability threat that is getting in the way of you doing something that you want to do. I want you to recognize that thing, recognize it for the irrationality that it is, and root it out. The next hard truth that we're going to talk about is that your ideas are not all that original. Okay? And to do that, we're going to invoke an Alabama favorite, UFOs. Okay? I wish I could bring my mom on my trips, A, because she has an awesome accent, B, because she has awesome Alabama hair, and C, because she totally believes in UFOs and would swear on the Bible to you that she has seen one, okay? I'm not here today to tell you to believe in UFOs or not, but I want to talk about what UFOs tell us about how we make ideas. UFOs, if they exist, and I'm pretty sure they don't, we call them flying saucers, right? So this most advanced piece of machinery in the universe, we give it the same name as the thing you set your tea on, right? Right? What about early locomotives? What did they call the early locomotive? Called it an iron horse. Because the way that people build new ideas is by putting old ideas together. We have this mistaken idea about ideas that they come asexually, that they just spring out of nowhere while we're running or in the shower or something like that. We just have a good idea out of nowhere and nothing really contributed to that. But that's not the way that it happens at all. Ideas happen, big ideas happen when little ideas get together. And to just show you a sort of a silly example from my life, I want to tell you about a training I did for a client recently. The training was this. My client is a very innovative company in Salt Lake, and they said, we do not want the same old training. We want something really cool, engaging, and you better bring us something good or we're not going to hire you again, right? So I'm motivated. It's about Halloween. My daughter is dressing up in all kinds of costumes. So that's one idea, one thing that's kind of percolating in my head. I'm reading stories, right? I'm reading my own books, and I'm reading stories to my daughter every night, and I'm thinking about the power of narrative. That's another idea. I'm thinking about the power of games during this time, too, and then you've also just got this sort of always going to be there dusty ideas about psychology that I've got. So all of these things came together in a training that was very successful called Zombie Team Building, okay? So zombie team building went like this. They had some skills that these folks had to learn. So we developed a regular old didactic training program around these skills, but if you didn't learn them, you got turned into a zombie, like this gentleman, right? And it worked great. And it's a silly example, but it is an illustration of how a good idea can be formed when lots of little good ideas come together. So why do I say that we're in danger of not having good ideas or that your ideas aren't all that original? Let me tell you why. 27% of Americans go to finish a 4-year college degree, right? It may seem higher than that to you because you hang out with people who are college educated, but only about a quarter of the country finishes a 4-year degree. Of that top 27% of the intellectual upper crust of our great nation, 42% of them never read another book after college. Oh, it hurts me. It hurts me. And 80% of American households do not purchase or check out a book in a calendar year. Okay? It's gross. It's horrible. It gets worse, though. 9 million people, however, tuned in for every episode of Jersey Shore. Okay? So we're not reading, but Honey Boo Boo is laughing all the way to the bank, folks. Okay? The fact is that your ideas are going to be as good or as dumb as the little ideas that you're putting in your head, right? And all of us have to learn to master the basic elements of our profession before we can have great ideas. So if you feel overwhelmed, don't be. Start by mimicking the experts. 74 of the last 100 best-selling movies have been sequels. Sequels are adaptations, right? Bob Dylan, the great songwriter, singer-songwriter. No, great songwriter, not a great singer. But Bob Dylan had 11 cover songs on his first album. And Hunter S. Thompson rewrote The Great Gatsby word for word just so his fingers would know what it felt like to type out a great novel, right? If you don't know where to start with the greats and learn from the greats. After that, be thoughtful about what goes into your brain, okay? Be thoughtful about the little ideas that you're putting in there if you want to have big, good ideas. And then finally, what can you give back? We have an awesome opportunity here to be surrounded by people, each with their own little body of knowledge and each with their own little area of expertise. Get together, share these things on social media, start a blog, write academic papers, do what you need to do to get those ideas out of your head and into the world so that we can all benefit from them when we're not watching Honey Boo Boo. Who wants to make more money? Raise your hand if you want to make more money. I can't totally make that happen for you, so that was kind of a tease. I apologize for that. But if you want to make more money, odds are you're chasing the wrong dream. The reason that I say this is not because money is useless, because I'm going to talk about in a little bit why it's not, why it's useful. But a lot of times we think about money as sort of liquid joy. We think about money as sort of the personification or the objectification of happiness, and that is not the case. 20% of Americans think that they are on the cusp of hitting it big, right? 20% of us think that we're on the cusp of being multimillionaires, even though only 2% of us actually are at any given time, okay? This explains lots of bad behavior, like people voting against their economic interests and buying lottery tickets, because everyone just thinks they're just like one payday away from hitting it big, right? I want you to think, too, about how much of your mental energy and how many of the hours in your day are spent in the pursuit of greater wealth, right? If you're like me, it's almost all of them, right? And I know that we have to work. I'm not trying to be impractical here, but I think that there's room in our heads and in our hearts and in the hours in our day for more if we want to be truly happy. Over the last 50 years, the size of the average American house has tripled over the last 50 years. What has been the impact on our happiness? Nothing, right? We've measured gross national happiness. We've got a booming stuff industry. We've got big houses to put lots of stuff in. We've got storage units galore to put stuff in, and we're no happier for any of this, right? So a Princeton study recently set out to answer the question, does money buy happiness? And the answer was kind of, right? Money buys happiness to a point. And the meaningful point that they found was about $75,000 per household. Because at $75,000 per household, you can take a vacation, you can live in a safe home, your kids can go to school, and not worry about being hurt. And most places in the country, $75,000 will kind of cover your basics. After that, they found almost no increase in incremental happiness, right? So someone who makes $7,000 is less happy than someone who makes $70,000, but someone who makes $7 million is not necessarily any happier than someone who makes $70,000, right? So money meets our basic needs, but beyond that, it's up to us. And in fact, 1 year after the life-changing event, a study of people who had been in horrible accidents that left them paralyzed were no more or less happy than people who had won the lottery. People just reverted back to the mean. People came back to wherever they were, because wherever you go, there you are, right? We determine our happiness so much more than money does. And as Viktor Frankl, one of my psychology heroes and Holocaust survivor, said so poignantly, ever more people today have the means to live, but no meaning to live for. I found this study of people who are on the verge of dying. And they asked them, I thought it was a great, very poignant study. They said, what are the 5 things that you wish you had done differently of these people who were sort of at the end of their life? And the one thing that I think you don't see up there notably is, I wish I had worked harder. I wish I had made more money. Okay? So let's keep money in its proper perspective. It's good. It helps. It facilitates a lot of good things. But it's not the end-all, be-all. This is actually a recruiting tool for you, too. The next time a candidate comes to you and asks for more money, you go, hey, it's not going to make you happy anyway, so let's just not. And the final thing that I want to talk to you about is that for all the big dreams you have, for any of the things that you want to do that mean the world to you, the time is never going to be right. Right? The time is never going to be right for you to have a child, to start a business, to move, to do whatever it is that you've been dreaming of doing. And the reason that the time will never be right is this. We are 2 times as upset about a loss as we are happy about a gain. Okay? We are 2 times as upset about a loss or missing out on something as we are happy about a gain. So think about the implications of this for our life. I will never forget the first client I ever had was a talented college student who had applied to 5 Ivy League schools. She had received back, Ivy League graduate schools, she had received back all 5 letters notifying her of whether or not she had been accepted, but had opened none of them. They had sat on her desk for 2 months before she came to talk to me, and she had not been able to bring herself to open them because of sort of the anticipated sadness of missing out. And I said, well, what if you got in, right? You know, there's five chances. What if you got in? And she said, it wouldn't be nearly as good as not getting in, right? So when we live our lives in this sad, sort of risk-averse, always hedging our bets way, we end up constructing these narratives. We end up constructing these narratives that keep us safe. And a lot of times, these narratives sound very grown up. When I quit my job to go start my own company 4 years ago, I had a great salary. I had a 6-month-old kid. I had a mortgage. It was the middle of a recession, right? I had a lot of good reasons not to go do what I was dreaming about. And if I had told people, hey, I'm miserable at my job, but I just can't quit because I got a kid and it's a recession, the economy's bad, nobody would have given me a hard time, right? Because I had constructed such an adult cage, right? But that doesn't mean these things are any less damaging. Because in our efforts to micromanage our lives, in our efforts to make sure that nothing goes wrong, everything ends up going wrong. Our efforts to control loss and sadness just lead us to this place where the walls are so padded that it's sad and we lose anyway, right? So get out there because the time will never be right. Each one of the companies that you see up there started during a depression. These are people that didn't ask, is the time right? Because they had a belief in their self. They had self-efficacy to say, even if the time's not great, I'm going to still go get it. And I'm a talented person and I can make things happen independent of my circumstances. Okay? So in closing here, I want you to think about one thing that you've been putting off. What's something that you've been constructing very adult excuses about to say, oh, the time's not right for this, or it just wouldn't be prudent, or this sort of thing? What have you been caging yourself in about? And find a way to go accomplish that this year. As I close out my talk, I want to say, hopefully now you have seen the positive undertones that I was talking about. Because if everything you do is great, then nothing is great. And we each have the power to colossally screw up. But we also have the opposite power to take these negative tendencies that we have to make our lives meaningful, to make our workplaces meaningful, and to live a better life. Your brain and your psychology is set up for you to not live a great life, but for you to live a safe life, for you to live a not bad life or a not dangerous life. But as you recognize these 7 things and you rail against them, I know that you are at a crossroads now where you can make the decision, do I want my life to be great or do I want my life to be not bad? And I sincerely, sincerely hope that you will choose to make it great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Just a few announcements. We do have a break right now. So I encourage you to take the time now to roam the exhibit hall, check your chapter membership, go get a selfie. We will also have some snacks that are by the SHRM Foundation booth. Concurrent sessions start at 10:15. See your Bizzabo app and agenda for that. Stop by the social media lab. Everyone's there to help. And have a great day.